Right now, though, let's meet Rachel Blount of the Minneapolis Star Tribune. Great reporter and columnist for the Star Trib. Rachel, how are you?
I'm well, Scott. How are you?
I'm good. I understand we have a mutual friend in Liz Fetter, and our audience in the Northern Valley will remember Liz Fetter as a longtime reporter at the Grand Forks Herald, who later went down to the Star Trib and is now on to bigger and better things. But our best to Liz.
Yeah, I will pass that along to her. She'll be glad to hear that.
She was a regular on the radio with me. Did she tell you that?
She did tell me that. Yes, she said she had a lot of fun with the show.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun over the years. So let's you and I have
some... She's a laugh and a half, isn't she? She
is a hoot. I love the lady. She is a hoot. No question about it. All right, so let's you and I have a little fun on the radio here. Let's talk a little bit about your column and your viewpoint. And largely this results from Dave Haxtell joining a course of others who have been longtime supporters of the name that have ultimately come to believe that it's time to change the name.
Right.
And the cost being too high at this point. And you write in your piece that despite that, you know, the football coach, the athletic director, the governor, the hockey coach, who, by the way, is a good friend of mine and a good man, you write, still the pro-fighting Sioux forces rage on, even as their unwinnable cause wreaks havoc on an institution they claim to care about. So let's talk about that piece of this. Do you honestly believe that those that want the name to remain don't care about the institution enough or don't see a different viewpoint on this?
I think that when we've reached this point where the consequences are very real, that if keeping the nickname is going to cause a lot of headaches for that athletic department and could very well damage your hockey program, as Dave Haxtell said, as well as your other sports, that yes, then it has become an unwinnable fight. And if you continue to wage that battle, knowing that waging the battle will hurt your university, then, yeah, I think you have to question, well, what do you really love? Do you love the university, or do you just love the logo?
Well, what about the role of the Native Americans in this? I mean, the folks that are out there huddling in the cold because they're not allowed to be in the arena. Native Americans who revere the bond between the namesake tribe, the Fighting Sioux, and the institution that was bestowed by the elders of these tribes in the 1930s, who say, look, that's very important to us. That's sacred to us. Do we just dismiss them because of some body that we all agree is absolutely dead wrong?
Well, I don't think you can dismiss them, and you'll notice that in the column I very specifically avoided making a judgment on the name, whether the name is good or bad, because I'm with Haxtell that, unfortunately, that's not the issue anymore. And, yeah, I agree with you that the NCAA it's not a good organization. There are a bunch of bullies over there, but they have a lot more lawyers than the University of North Dakota does, and that's the problem is I just don't see any way that the NCAA is going to back down, and they will put the hammer down. So, again, I'm afraid that in this case the principles just they don't really matter anymore because you cannot fight the NCAA and win. And in continuing to fight them, the school will be hurt. And I'm sure that that's why Dave Haxtell came to the realization that he did, was because he just thinks the potential cost to the university is too high.
Let's get inside the NCAA mindset a little bit, and I agree with everything you said about them, and they have more lawyers and everything else. But I also heard you say, you know, just sometimes you just get principle, right or wrong, set it aside. What I think most folks on the other side of this are saying, I'm always going to fight for what's right, no matter who tells me you can't do it. And the NCAA, I don't believe, wants the Rachel Blounts of the world and the New York Times and the Washington Post and others to say, wait a minute, a bunch of Native Americans are fighting for something their elders bestowed upon the university in the 30s, and now they've got to the point where they've gathered signatures to put this question to the people of North Dakota who ultimately own these institutions, and let them decide. NCAA, you said all along you wanted to hear the voices of the people, specifically Standing Rock and Spirit Lake. One of the two weighed in, the other didn't. Now we have a chance to see where the people who live there are at on this issue. And if ultimately that question is called to the people, who's to say the NCAA doesn't stand down, not wanting to have you and others write about this?
You already passed a law thinking that would make the NCAA stand down, and it didn't. So I don't think a constitutional amendment is going to do it either. If the law didn't do it, I just don't think a constitutional amendment is going to work either. The NCAA has been very, very clear on this.
You know, the problem, though, is a lot of the back channel, Rachel, that's gone on. In other words, as soon as the law was passed, there were winks and nods going to the NCAA saying, well, we could repeal it. And, we should sit down and talk about it. But by the way, the Native Americans aren't welcome at the table to talk about it. NCAA wouldn't even let them in. So the problem is there's been a lot of winks and nods going on. I'll give you the latest example. When the signatures were gathered, instantly the Board of Higher Education meets, and one member of that board says, well, let's put back the Fighting Sioux then, knowing full well that the phones are going to ring at the athletic director's office and the president's office to say, well, if you're back Fighting Sioux, then we have to do A, B, and C, sort of provoking that fight. Nobody's took a breath enough to say, well, wait a minute, what would solve this with the NCAA? And by the way, if that vote is called and if the Constitution is changed, I don't think the NCAA wants this fight. But if we keep saying, hey, we'll fix it, what motivation is there on the part of the NCAA to sit down and try and fix it?
I don't think the NCAA cares about the fight. I think they've dug in on this. I think they do want it, Scott. I'll disagree with you on that. I think they're willing to go to the mat on it because that's how the NCAA works. They've always shown throughout their history they're willing to take anybody on, and they're a very powerful organization that knows how powerful they are. So I don't think they mind the fight at all. And again, what I keep going back to on this is nobody wore that uniform with more pride and distinction than Dave Haxtell, and nobody loves it more than he does. And for him to say, folks, we've reached the end here. I think we need to move on. That to me is such a powerful statement that a guy that we all know loves the school and represented it so well and has coached so many other young men to represent it well. For him to say that, I think that to me is what sealed it for me, frankly.
No, I hear you. And Dave's a good friend of mine, and I feel terrible about the position he's put in. By the way, I'd love to know more of the position he has been put in because I don't think he came to those decisions along the way easily. I think there was a lot of criticism of him for speaking out in favor of the name, which I don't like, from people that sign his paycheck. But I do believe that Dave is telling us what he heartfelt believes right now. And I think that's all the more reason that voters should be given that opportunity to say, here's what Dave says, someone that's supported this all along, and here's what the potential consequences are, so where are you at on it? And settle it once and for all. To not let people that own this institution have a say on this is disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Everything you said of the potential peril because of the NCAA, I agree with. But I don't think it trumps letting people have a voice in this, and that's what's being denied. Then that's the very unfortunate thing. A lot of backroom things going on we don't know about in this as well, and that's why the Native Americans are continuing to fight for what they believe is right, and I support them. I think you can never go wrong there. Rachel, thanks so much for your thoughts.